Rugby Championship 2022 is not far away, folks. We've got a super pool. If you think you know your stuff, down in the description. Sign up for that and show us what you got. But who are the favourites? Who are the underdogs for this one? We're going to go through the fixtures list, some thoughts, recent history, and then we'll give you the bookies' odds on kind of who they've got as the favourites and the underdogs. And you guys can let me know your thoughts, who you reckon is going to take this one home. We will start with the Pumas. The Pumas finally get some home games in the Rugby Championship this year. They didn't in the last two tournaments. They had a couple of games in South Africa last year, and then the rest of the tournament in Australia, like the rest of us, kind of finished off there. They are home to Australia first, 2 home games. You'd have to think, I know the Pumas, like not many people are saying, I think this is the year the Pumas take it home, but you'd have to think, if they're going to have any chance, you really need to use that Michael Checker inside knowledge and win both those home games. Away trip to New Zealand is going to be tough. Maybe with the All Blacks in a little bit of a wounded spot at the moment, this is the time to kind of sneak one over them. And then home and away to South Africa, again, you'd have to think you have to hold your home game and maybe sneak in away one in South Africa, but very much easier said than done. As I said, I don't think many people are holding out much hope that the Pumas are going to take it home. But, I've heard from some Pumas fans, one win is probably not going to be satisfactory. You'd be aiming for at least a couple, maybe a 50-50 record. But, we'll have to see how they go. The checker factor certainly makes the opening part of the tour with Australia coming to town much more interesting. Remember, they went none from 6 in the tournament last year. They didn't have any home games last year, so it's definitely a different beast. Home games, new coach. How are they doing with the bookies? Not very well favoured, 3.4%, which is like $26 they are paying to win this one. So I checked a few different bookmakers, Aussie, Kiwi, South African. They've all got the teams in the same order. The odds are slightly different for each team, but I mean, this is a Kiwi bookmaker, so take the percentages for what they're worth. But either way, the Argentinians are the big-time underdogs for this one. The Wallabies, remember the Wallabies finished second in the Rugby Championship last year, but second could be considered slightly disappointing, seeing as they had apart from one game at Eden Park, they had the entire tournament at home with COVID, meaning they had to kind of rejig the competition to be based in Australia. They went 4 from 6, so it's the 2 games against the All Blacks they couldn't win, but they managed to do a double over the Pumas in the box. So yeah, it's a different kettle of fish this year with only 50% of the games at home. And like I mentioned, the away trip to Argentina to start things. Now, the Wallabies' recent record, if you can call it recent, because I think it goes back to 2018, in Argentina is actually pretty good. They've won their last 2 or 3 games in Argentina, so it's not a place that they're like on some big dry run. And then 2 home games against the Springboks. Their record against the Springboks at home in recent years is actually remarkably good. I don't think they've lost a game in like 9 years. I mean, there's a bit of draw in there as well. But, yeah, their record over South Africa in recent times, very, very good. So, decent record away in Argentina recently. As I said, not that recent. Good home record over South Africa. Then you just got those games in New Zealand to finish things off. Admittedly, the last one away is Eden Park, which no team has had any luck, and the Aussies haven't had much luck on New Zealand soil for a wee while. So, but maybe Australia's a wee bit of a dark horse. Bookies don't really think so. 16.3%, which is good enough for $5.50. So, not really favoured, but like I mentioned, I don't think the draw, the way it is kind of that unkind to the Wallabies. There's certainly a bit of potential there. Although, as I said, I wouldn't like to be trying to, having to win that final game at Eden Park to secure things, but yeah, you never know. There's been a lot of history broken in July, so who knows what could happen. The All Blacks away trip to South Africa seems pretty tough on the back of that home series loss to Ireland, because it certainly doesn't get any easier, does it? But maybe one good thing about that is it's a total break from the kind of microscope of being in New Zealand with the All Blacks team on a losing run. There's kind of unbelievable pressure on them at home. So I know there's still going to be a lot of attention put on the All Blacks anytime they're in South Africa. So it's still going to be under the microscope, but it's going to be different. They'll be away, they'll be in hotels, they'll be spending a lot of time together, maybe getting out. Hopefully they get a bit of time to see a few sights and just kind of get away from the pressure cooker of New Zealand rugby. So maybe the away trip to South Africa could do them good. I think they'll probably need to get at least one win there. but we'll have to wait and see. They should be big-time favourites for their 2 home games in Argentina. Yeah, you can't be dropping games at home to Argentina, I think, if you want to win this tournament, and then away and home to the Wallabies. Home game, Wallabies, Eden Park. If you need to secure the title in that game, you'd like to think that's the kind of game you could put the mortgage on, but as I said, a lot of history has been broken in recent times, so you'd be a brave person to do so. But they are the reigning champs of this competition, the All Blacks. They went 5 from 6 last year, just the one loss on the neutral ground to the Box. They had only one home game in last year's Rugby Championship, but Australia is not too far from New Zealand, so it's kind of like a home away from home. But yeah, the 2 away games in South Africa, if they are crushing defeats, is going to really, really just make things madness over here in New Zealand. But if they can get 1 win, I think that'll at least ease the pressure off Fozzie. But yeah, it'll certainly be a tough one. Believe it or not, the All Blacks at 44.6% are the favourites with the bookies. The All Blacks are generally favourites for this competition. $2 is what they're paying, so they are favourites ahead of the other 3 teams. But as I said, that's kind of just par for the course, and that's with bookmakers in different countries as well. It's not just the New Zealand bookies; it's pretty much across the board. Lastly, the Springboks. They have got proper home games this year, and home to New Zealand to start, I think, is honestly a nice change. The Rugby Championships tended to be a little bit boring in that it's always Australia, New Zealand, and Argentina, South Africa start. We get New Zealand up against South Africa to start, which I think is great. It's something a bit different, and it should be kind of varied up. It shouldn't be the same 2 teams kind of every year, I think. But yeah, 2 home games. I think they're going to be vital. The Springboks really do need to not take the foot off the throat of the All Blacks, who are, as I said, in a tough place right now. Now, I know the Springboks will not be taking this lightly. They're not going to be thinking, well, New Zealand's having a bad run. We can kind of ease our way to victory. I don't think any match between the All Blacks and Springboks goes in with that kind of mindset, right? So, yeah, I'm pretty sure the Springboks management will be getting the boys well up for this one. 2 home wins against the All Blacks, if they can get those. Then they need to break that duck against the Wallabies. I think much like New Zealand maybe needs to get an away win in South Africa, the Boks probably need to get a away win over the Wallabies. And every year, I think, at least since Sharsies took over, there seems to be a bit of confidence that that's going to happen, but it didn't happen last year. It was close in one of the games, but the Wallabies genuinely just don't lose home games to the South Africans since, as I said, 2013, barring 1 draw. So, yeah, that's a bit of history or a bit of a trend that the Boks need to break. And then kind of the same deal with the All Blacks finishing at home. If the Boks are in it with a game to go, you'd like to think you could put the mortgage on them to beat the Pumas at home. But they've got to get the away job done first to try and keep themselves in the contention. But we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Still a lot of rugby to be played between now and then. But yeah, as I said, finishing at home could be a bit of an advantage going into that final round like the All Blacks have got. But anyway, if you're good at your maths, you already know that the Boks are at 35.7%. So paying $2.50. So much of a muchness between the All Blacks and the Boks, with the Wallabies kind of third, kind of distantly, and then the Pumas distantly fourth. Like I said, bookie to bookie, the numbers slightly changed, but ultimately All Blacks are number 1 favourites, despite the recent record. Boks are number 2 favourites, Aussies are number 3, and then Pumas are number 4. You guys let me know your thoughts. Who do you reckon? Do you reckon it's the Boks with those home games against New Zealand? That kind of would have been my gut feeling, but as I said, the All Blacks have got a really good record in this competition. I don't think they've become a bad team overnight, and I hope they can kind of turn it around. But as I said, also, I do quite like the Wallabies fixtures list. If they can kind of keep their recent history, beating Argentina away and beating the Springboks at home, that just leaves the problem of New Zealand to kind of finish things off. And the Pumas, man, I'm just happy these guys are back at home. Be nice to see them pick up a couple of wins, eh? I hope they don't go none from 6 like they did last year, but they're at home, so different kettle of fish entirely. You guys have any thoughts? Who have you got for the favourites? Super Pool, like I said, down in the description. Yeah, you guys have any thoughts? Drop us a like if you got this far through, or a subscribe. That always helps. YouTube loves algorithmic stuff like that. Cheers, guys. Talk to you again soon.